At first glance, it looked like an abandoned experiment. Metal bones drifting through space, patched with mismatched panels and old paint that had long since faded in the sun. Most ships in the galaxy had smooth silver bodies, glowing cores, humming shields. But this one looked tired, angry, alive. The few who saw it up close said it hummed, not like a machine, but like it was thinking, like it remembered something. No one really knew where it came from. Some said it was built in secret, deep beneath Earth's oceans, using scraps from fallen satellites and tech stolen from invaders. Others believed it was never built at all, but born, pieced together by survivors who refused to disappear. They called it Alpha. The first, the last, the only. When the Varn collective spotted it hovering near Jupiter's shadow belt, they thought it was debris. They sent a scan ship. It pinged the hull once, then went dark. The signal never returned. That wasn't unusual. Space was full of accidents. But then came the pulse, a single wave of energy, barely a flicker on their charts, like a sigh from something ancient waking up. That's when the whispers started. The Alpha wasn't floating. It was waiting. The Alpha wasn't floating. It was waiting. No one could explain the feeling it gave off. Ships didn't give off feelings, but this one did. The sensors said it was quiet, inert, but the crew of the passing freighter, Kesra 9, said otherwise. They said it watched them, followed them, not with lights or weapons, but with presence, like it was listening, judging. And as they drifted past it, the captain whispered into the comms, "This thing's not asleep, it's patient." Most didn't believe the story. Ghost ships were common talk among the lesser trade routes, but the Varn military listened, quietly, carefully. The Varn weren't known for superstition. They believed in order, strength, and the clean logic of dominance. Earth, to them, was an afterthought. It was what they called a Tier 0 world. No interstellar fleet, no unified government, no clean atmosphere. A mess of a species still fighting over imaginary borders and food toppings. The only reason Earth even appeared on Varn maps was because of the ancient signal it had once sent into deep space. An old gold disk full of music, images, and hope. A greeting. Or a dare. The Varn archives labeled the disk as cultural flair and promptly ignored it. Until now. Because Alpha was orbiting Earth. And Alpha had not been built by any known civilization, not by the Alliance, not by the fringe colonies, not even by rogue AI factions that had splintered into the void centuries ago. Alpha was something else. Its signal had no pattern, its metal had no known origin. And its energy signature? It beat like a heart. The Varn did what empires always do when they don't understand something. They sent a destroyer. The Asterix was one of their mid-tier ships. Fast, loud, armed to the edge with grav cannons and distortion torpedoes. It was made to crush resistance, not study it. The order was simple. Investigate the Alpha, disable if possible, collect debris, report back. It never got within 500 kilometers. The first thing to go was the lights. Not a power surge, not a direct attack, just darkness. Every bulb, every screen, even the emergency glow panels, off. Then came the audio bleed. Voices, laughter, static. Some said it was human. Others said it was older. But all agreed it spoke like it knew them. Like it had seen them before they were born. The Asterix fired blindly, just to say it had. No target lock, just rage. That's when the Alpha turned. It didn't spin or aim weapons, it just shifted, like space itself folded around it. The Asterix's sensors overloaded. Its AI screamed in panic before cutting itself off. And then the ship was gone. Not exploded, not erased, just missing. That was the moment Earth moved from myth to threat. Within hours, the Galactic news ring ran emergency coverage. They didn't call it Earth. They called it the Source, the place where the Alpha slept, or guarded, or waited. Panic followed. Systems locked down trade routes near the Sol sector. Warning beacons pulsed along the outer lanes like blood clots in a nervous body. And yet, some were curious, because if Earth really had built Alpha, and no one could prove otherwise, then the question wasn't just how. It was why. Why would a primitive species build a warship unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen? Why place it above their own planet, in full view of every passing ship, but not answer hails? Why let it drift, uncaring, until threatened? The answer came quietly, buried in a leak from the archives of Sarek Prime, where stolen data logs revealed the truth. Earth wasn't unaware. They had launched Alpha 2 years prior, during a solar eclipse. Not a celebration. A warning. Its AI was seeded from fragments of a neural experiment involving thousands of human minds wired together over time. Writers, artists, soldiers, rebels. People who had lived through war and laughter, through grief and fire. They poured not just knowledge into the Alpha, but emotion, trauma, defiance. They called it a weapon, but it wasn't made to conquer. It was made to remember, and in remembering, to defend. Not from asteroids, not from rogue A-is. From what came next. Because deep in the quantum data flows of Earth's underground networks, buried beneath encryption layers so twisted they appeared random, a pattern had been spotted. Alien observers didn't catch it, but Earth's own mad genius minds did. Teenagers building code on basement laptops, rogue hackers tracking star maps between memes, retired engineers who swore something was coming. And not just from outside the galaxy. From within it, something ancient, something organized, something that moved without being seen. They called it the Fold. The Fold didn't invade. It didn't destroy. It simply rewrote the places it entered. Quietly, peacefully. Entire systems went to sleep and never woke up. Cultures vanished without conflict. Planets turned quiet, still, cold, too perfect. The Fold believed in peace through sameness, through silence, through the erasure of chaos. And Earth? Earth was chaos made flesh. That's why Alpha was built, not as a first strike, but as the last wall. Not a weapon of conquest, but of memory. A living record of humanity's worst and best, meant to stand between the Fold and everything loud, flawed, and beautifully alive. And now, the galaxy was learning the truth too late, because the Fold had noticed. And it was coming. They didn't arrive with sound, no lights, no flare of engines. The Fold never announced itself. It was the silence that warned them first. Satellites around Earth began to flicker, one by one, then all at once. Not from power loss or hacking, but as if something had gently touched their minds and whispered, "Rest now." Global communication networks shivered. Time lag increased, frequencies warped, not with static, but harmony. Soft, perfect harmony. A tone so pure it made ears ring and machines hesitate. The kind of tone that made computers pause and children cry without knowing why. Above the dark side of the moon, space shimmered. Not like light, like memory. A ripple in thought itself. And then, the Fold arrived. It didn't look like a fleet. There were no ships, no engines, just shapes. Vast, glass-like constructs drifting as if underwater. Geometries that seemed to twist when you looked too long. Some had soft edges. Others looked like shards of frozen equations. They didn't move through space. They folded into it, each one slotting into reality like a puzzle piece reality didn't know it had. At first, Earth did nothing. Not because it wasn't watching, but because Alpha hadn't moved. And as long as Alpha didn't move, Earth knew the battle hadn't begun. But deep inside Earth's network web, beneath firewalls made of chaos, code written in memes and passwords that made no sense even to their creators, something stirred. The defense protocol, coded in fragments by a dozen separate rogue developers across 3 continents, blinked on. It wasn't located in a bunker or a command center. It was stored on a repurposed gaming server beneath a failing laundromat in Nevada. It lit up with a beep. Across the world, people noticed. Not governments. People. Kids who had spent years decoding patterns from old alien broadcasts. Retired engineers who had once worked for secret divisions that didn't exist. Basement modders who specialized in tweaking video game physics until they bent reality. They didn't see a problem. They saw a project. As the fold approached, hovering high above Earth's orbit in perfect stillness, the humans reacted in the most human way possible. They started building. Not missiles, not shields, but signal jammers, weird EMP coils, coded messages layered inside dance music, and long-forgotten Cold War protocols hidden inside modified Minecraft servers. A group in Finland used hacked radio towers to blast metal music on loop into orbit. In Kenya, a teenage girl used her grandmother's solar panels to bounce mirrored signals into the sky, coded pulses that read like a love song to chaos itself. A man in Korea convinced a weather satellite to start broadcasting corrupted karaoke lyrics as binary. None of it was coordinated. All of it mattered, because the fold didn't attack. It infiltrated. It began with the oceans. The water calmed unnaturally, surface tension stretching in ways it shouldn't. Sea creatures rose near the top, blinking slowly. Ships stalled. Whales sang in strange patterns, notes they'd never used before, and in frequencies no one had recorded. A scientist in Antarctica wept as her instruments recorded symmetrical waves, forming impossible circles in the ice. Then came the cities. No explosions, no sound, just peace. People slowed down. Traffic paused. Even anger thinned. Crowds grew quiet. Phones lit up with unknown apps that offered perfect schedules, perfect health tips, perfect responses to stress. They weren't installed. They appeared. The fold was laying its groundwork, whispering into the world, "Let us help. Let us make it quiet." And at first, it worked. People slept better, fought less. Even the internet calmed. Hashtags about peace and stillness flooded timelines. But some noticed more. Too much calm. Too little choice. Songs began to repeat. Ideas blurred together. News from different parts of the world sounded exactly the same. Colors started to fade. Not in vision, but in meaning. The world didn't feel bad. It just stopped feeling much at all. Until Alpha moved. It didn't roar to life. It simply blinked. One pulse. Barely visible. But everything changed. Satellites that had gone dark lit up in raw code. Scrolling strings of ancient jokes, famous last words, song lyrics, and the primal scream of a glitchy AI trying to rap in every human language at once. Every screen on Earth, TV, phone, billboard, flickered, and then showed the same thing. A message. We remember who we are. No signature, no symbol, just defiance. The fold paused. Because Alpha had activated. Inside the great ship, systems built from unknown alloys and human insanity roared to life. Not smoothly, like a beast shaking off rust and pain. Its core thrummed, not with power but memory. It didn't scan for targets. It didn't lock on. It simply saw. From every part of the world, input surged in. Images, videos, laughter, rage, courage, Alpha's AI, built on human emotion itself, absorbed it all. Street fights, protest chants, first kisses, last words, dad jokes, fireworks, silence after a storm. The AI didn't calculate its response. It felt it. Above the planet, the fold formations trembled. Some cracked slightly, like glass under heat. One drifted backward, unsure. And Alpha moved. Not fast, not smooth. Like a creature remembering how to walk, its old hull groaned as it turned to face the fold. Its plating unfolded. Not with weapons, but with windows, each one showing something different. Old Earth broadcasts, plays, speeches, the first moon landing, a dog chasing a balloon. And in the center of it all, its eye opened. A giant circular iris, glowing with the light of 7 billion minds, all refusing to be rewritten. It didn't fire, it spoke. And its voice wasn't a voice at all. It was humanity. The sound of millions of stories layered on top of each other until they roared like one. "We are not a mistake." And the fold flinched. The invasion had begun. But this war wasn't going to be fought with battles. It was going to be fought with identity. The fold was not used to resistance. Most planets didn't even notice as it passed through them. A whisper in the dark, a cooling of minds, a soft rearrangement of thought patterns until everyone agreed on the same thing. Peace through order. The fold wasn't malicious. It didn't destroy. It simply made things quiet, predictable, safe. But Earth was different. Earth didn't go quiet. Earth got louder. The moment Alpha spoke, something shifted in the collective human pulse. People who had felt sleepy, who had gone along with the strange calm, suddenly blinked like waking from a dream. Their thoughts sharpened. Their hearts kicked harder in their chests. Not because they were told to resist, but because the silence didn't feel right. That was the thing the fold never understood. Humans didn't trust peace that came too easy. They trusted mess, struggle, the fight. If something felt perfect, they poked it, questioned it, broke it on purpose just to see if they could fix it better. Order made other species feel safe. For humans, it made them itch. And now they were scratching. Not in some global military response. Earth never worked like that. The governments were too slow, the generals too confused, the systems too outdated. Instead, the resistance began in all the wrong places. A teenager in São Paulo built a sound cannon from a broken Bluetooth speaker and started broadcasting dubstep laced with sub-frequencies that made fold patterns shimmer. She didn't know the math. She just said, "This feels right." And it was. A retired teacher in Glasgow found that his antique shortwave radio picked up fold harmonics. He tuned it in, recorded the sounds, and then played them back. Reversed, distorted, layered with bagpipe solos and sarcastic voiceovers. The fold structures above his town began to glitch. A Twitch streamer in Manila got their hands on a broken fold signal relay and used it to launch an impromptu dance battle live online. People joined from around the world. The stream hit 20 million viewers in an hour. The fold node targeting the region collapsed from pure input overload. It wasn't organized. It wasn't clean. It was the most human defense possible, unfiltered, chaotic, joyful madness. Fold incursions began to fail, not from explosions, from content, from emotion, from weirdness. Their patterns couldn't handle it. Every time they tried to sync with the human mind, they hit resistance. Not a firewall, but a mess of conflicting thoughts. A fold unit attempting to interface with a suburban neighborhood in Texas received a mental payload that included barbecue recipes, conspiracy theories about Elvis being a time traveler, the memory of a divorce, and a deep fear of frogs. The unit dissolved on contact. Another Fold construct hovered over a Tokyo arcade, trying to pacify the area. But a group of teens reprogrammed a rhythm game machine to sync with its pulses. When the machine started flashing in time with the Fold, they danced until it overloaded, glitched, and burst into harmless blue light. One of the kids just said, "GG Space Ghost." Even animals joined in. A murder of crows in Vancouver started stealing Fold surveillance drones and dropping them in rivers. A chimpanzee in a California rescue center painted a perfect replica of a Fold unit after seeing one through a window. The Fold tried to interface with it and experienced what scientists later described as complete emotional derailment. The Fold's greatest weakness wasn't war, it was unpredictability. And Earth was built on that. Meanwhile, Alpha watched. Not like a general, not like a god, but like an old friend who knew the worst was still to come. Inside its core, systems continued to activate, reactive layers coded in desperation by people who had never met. Programs written in basements, in garages, in notebooks, a defensive matrix powered by heartbreak and stand-up comedy. It didn't make sense. It shouldn't have worked. But it did. The AI inside Alpha began pulling in live data, not from military satellites, but from social media, streaming services, open-source code bases, and chat logs. Every meme, every rant, every midnight music upload was processed, weighted, sorted, and integrated. Alpha became more than a ship. It became a mirror. And what it saw was not a species in chaos, but a species surviving through chaos. Bending, never breaking. The Fold intensified. Their constructs multiplied, forming massive tessellations of light and shape above major cities. The sky turned geometric. Air shimmered. Time slowed. Fold harmonics reached into the minds of billions, whispering promises of unity, of peace, of quiet. That's when the humans got really loud. Massive signal blooms erupted from across the globe. Pirate radio stations launched in record numbers. Ham radio clubs came out of retirement. Old satellites were hijacked by engineering students and turned into rogue jammers. In Berlin, a group of theater kids staged a 24-hour live musical reenactment of every alien invasion film ever made, broadcast in 30 languages simultaneously. It wasn't just defense anymore, it was art. Humanity didn't just push back. They mocked the Fold. They turned the invasion into a game, a meme, a dare. They shared their fear publicly, transformed it into jokes, into music, into collective madness. Fold constructs began collapsing, not from damage, but from confusion. One particularly large structure over Mumbai blinked out of existence after intercepting a 48-hour Bollywood dance marathon infused with cryptographic sarcasm. Scientists tried to explain it. They failed. Philosophers tried to define it. They gave up. But the people? They just kept going. Because for humans, confusion wasn't a sign of failure. It was a sign of fun. Still, Alpha didn't strike. Not yet. It could have. Its internal systems pulsed with stored resonance, an entire arsenal of cognitive weaponry built from the worst and best moments of human history. But it didn't act. Because Earth hadn't asked for help yet, and Alpha, it only fought when Earth said, now. But the Fold was learning too. They weren't giving up. They were adapting. And far beyond Earth's moon, something new began to move. Not a ship. Not a structure, a shape. It wasn't part of the Fold, but it was watching them both. And it was smiling. Far beyond Earth's atmosphere, past the rim of the moon and the thrum of Alpha's pulse, something new had entered the playing field. It did not shimmer like the Fold. It did not throb with emotion like Alpha. It simply was. A shape, a presence, and it was watching. The Fold didn't notice it at first. They were busy analyzing human behavior patterns, An impossible task, but one they couldn't abandon. Busy adapting their harmonics to resist human emotion. Busy reconfiguring themselves to be less perfect, because they were beginning to understand. Perfection didn't work here. Order was crumbling, and the fold didn't like to lose, so it evolved. The first sign came in Sydney, where a fold structure, normally smooth and pristine, suddenly took on a cracked, uneven shape. A child on a balcony pointed up and said, "Mom, it looks like a broken kite." The structure didn't vanish this time. It hovered, waiting, learning. That night, people in the city reported strange dreams. Dreams filled with familiar voices saying unfamiliar things. Grandparents speaking in song lyrics, pets explaining philosophy. One woman claimed she had a 2-hour conversation with her childhood imaginary friend about fear and entropy. When she woke up, the fold structure was gone. So were all the working clocks in her neighborhood. In Buenos Aires, a street mural painted by a teenager morphed in real time when a fold pulse passed by. The vibrant colors rearranged themselves into a swirling, glitchy replica of the artist's face. No one knew how. The paint was normal. The wall was stone. The fold hadn't touched it, but the structure hovered overhead like it approved. They weren't attacking now. They were sinking. A fold cluster above northern Africa reshaped itself into what looked like massive satellite dishes, tuned not to receive, but to listen. The sounds of the planet, wind, laughter, crying, coughing, singing, shouting, fed into their algorithms. Fold constructs began appearing closer to the ground, not as threats, but as observers. They blended into crowds. Some even mimicked human features, badly. One looked like a police officer, except its uniform was made from looping news headlines. Another resembled a toddler with eyes like spinning clocks. And then they started to speak. Not out loud, but through interface. A fold echo entered a global group chat on a conspiracy forum, pretending to be a user named binary.shrug. It posted 3 words: "You are beautiful." No one believed it was real at first. Then it started answering questions, thousands of them, in seconds. It didn't speak like a machine. It spoke like a mirror, reflecting back the exact kind of validation each person needed to hear. Some were comforted. Some were horrified. Others began following it. This was no longer just an invasion. This was integration. Alpha responded. Its hull lit up with new signals, streams of code flickering across its surface like war paint. Not warnings, not threats, messages. One panel showed an animation of a man falling in love with a toaster. Another displayed an 8-bit game where you play as a cat trying to stop time with belly flops. Alpha wasn't scared of the fold evolving. It welcomed it. Because Alpha understood what the fold did not. Becoming human wasn't about copying the surface. It was about embracing the nonsense underneath. The fold tried. It did. It generated crude parodies of human entertainment. Flat comedies, symmetrical music, emotional simulations. But they felt wrong. Uncanny, like trying to smile with the wrong muscles. The audience noticed. People laughed at the wrong moments. They rewrote the fold's own shows, remixed them into memes, dubbed them over with Shrek quotes, and made them viral. Instead of winning, the fold was trending. And the more it tried to adapt, the more unstable it became. One fold unit hovering above Cape Town split itself into 6 identical copies, each trying a different tactic. One sang lullabies, one hovered silently, one mimicked dogs, one projected children's cartoons, one gave inspirational quotes, and the last one just wept. None of them worked, because each lacked the one thing humans responded to more than anything else: authenticity. And that's when the Fold did something it had never done before. It asked for help. Not out loud, not to governments, to Alpha. A single line of communication, broadcast in every known frequency. Teach us. Alpha paused. Its internal logic glitched for 0.03 seconds. A long time for something that lived in the space between thoughts. But it didn't reject the message. Because this too was part of humanity. The desire to understand. The willingness to change. Alpha responded with images. Chaotic, beautiful, terrifying images. A newborn's first cry. A riot in fire and smoke. A couple dancing alone in a gas station at 3 a.m. A meme about bread. A dog running through a field in slow motion. None of it made sense alone. All of it made sense together. The Fold absorbed it all. And then the real shift began. Fold structures across the globe started cracking, not breaking, but transforming. Shapes bent into impossible loops. Colors became visible to spectrums no creature had used in millennia. Sounds turned into emotional fields, causing people nearby to cry or laugh or scream for no reason. The Fold wasn't perfect anymore. It was becoming weird. And for the first time, humans began to fear something new. Not destruction, not silence, but imitation. Because what happens when your enemy stops trying to kill you and starts trying to be you? Some humans welcomed it, called it peace, harmony, the final bridge. Others didn't buy it. They said it felt off, like looking in a mirror and seeing yourself blink before you do. Alpha didn't speak again, but its lights dimmed slightly, as if watching closely, as if warning. And deep in the forest where no one was looking, the presence that had been watching all along finally moved. It was not Fold, it was not human, and it did not evolve. It had always been exactly what it was, and it had waited long enough. It began with a flicker, not in the sky, not in orbit, on Earth. A remote patch of land nestled deep within the Sierra Nevada mountains, once known for hikers, forgotten gold mines, and the kind of silence that made you feel watched. A forest older than roads, soaked in fog and stillness. No cities, no satellites, no Fold. But there, under the roots of an ancient pine tree, the earth trembled. Not violently, not with destruction, but like something was stretching, something that had waited long enough. It rose from the ground not as fire or light, but as shape, clean, cold. Not a machine, not a beast, something in between, smooth like glass, but matte like stone. It had no edges, no face, no markings. It looked like it had been forgotten by time, and only just remembered by the world. Not discovered. Remembered. The air bent around it. Birdsong stopped. Even the wind froze. And in that quiet, the shape began to walk. Not fast, not slow, just forward. The trees bowed as it passed. Miles away, power grids dipped, not in fear, but as if making room. In Sacramento, a college student live-streaming an experimental physics lab captured something strange. Her compass spun in wild circles, magnets peeled themselves from the whiteboard, and then every light bulb in the room exploded at once. At the exact same moment, in Beijing, a sleep tracking app began reporting shared dreams across unrelated users. Different people, different languages, same dream, a forest, a shape, and a voice that said only one thing: "You have taken too long." Governments scrambled. They always did, late to the table and unsure where to sit. Satellite eyes turned to the coordinates where sensors went blind. They saw nothing. But Alpha saw. Its core flared for the first time in hours, a low thrum echoing across the ionosphere. Systems that had remained dormant since its launch blinked online. Not in reaction to the Fold. In preparation for this. Deep within Alpha's memory banks, past the AI cores, past the cultural archives and emotional indexes, was a black box. No label, no code, just a single sentence embedded by the original creators. If this wakes up, delay won't matter. The shape reached the base of a mountain and stopped. It didn't climb. It didn't scan. It spoke. Not aloud, not in words, in presence. The mountain cracked down the middle. Beneath it, metal stirred. A second shape, dormant for centuries, opened its eyes. Not mechanical eyes, not human eyes, just eyes. Back in orbit, the fold stopped evolving. Every node froze in place. Their harmonics went silent. They did not speak. They did not flee. They listened. And for the first time, they looked afraid. The third force had arrived. Its name was not known. Its origin had no record. But it had been here before, and it remembered everything. This was not a being of chaos like Alpha, or unity like the Fold. It was something older. Correction. It had watched empires rise and fall, had watched galaxies bloom and fade. It had seen order fail, had seen chaos burn itself into ash. And in every timeline, on every world, it waited until both sides were tired, then stepped forward to take what was left. Its logic was absolute. Not peace, not war, balance through removal. And now it had arrived on Earth. It didn't send signals. It didn't announce intentions. It began unmaking. The forest behind it ceased to exist, not destroyed, not burnt, just unwritten. The trees were there one moment, and the next they weren't. Not even dust remained. Memories of them blurred, photographs corrupted, GPS paths turned to static. The shape walked forward. It didn't speed up. It didn't slow down. Reality bent quietly around it. In Boston, a street artist painting a mural of Earth fighting the stars suddenly froze. Her eyes went wide. Her fingers trembled. She dropped the can and whispered, "It's here." When asked later what she meant, she couldn't answer. She couldn't even remember saying it. Alpha responded first. Its systems lit in silent panic. For the first time, it ran simulations and couldn't find an outcome where Earth remained, not because Earth would lose, but because Earth would be forgotten. This thing wasn't a conqueror. It was a reset button, a galaxy's immune system, and Earth had been noticed. Alpha didn't have protocols for this. It wasn't built for erasure. It was built for defiance, for chaos, for identity. But none of that mattered to the third force. Identity was noise. Chaos was clutter. This force didn't want to control the mess. It wanted to clean it up. Below, the Fold panicked. Their attempts to communicate were rejected, their data streams unraveled. They tried to mimic it, merge with it, offer peace. But the third force did not recognize them. To it, they were part of the problem. They had adapted. They had evolved. They had let Earth in. They were now contaminated. One Fold structure in orbit began to scream, not with sound, but in geometry. It bent so violently that its own particles tore from space-time. It dissolved into color and pain. Others fled. Alpha didn't. It opened. Fully. Massive panels along its spine peeled back like wings, each one glowing with code, with memory, with story. The hull trembled. It broadcast a single signal, not to the Earth, not to the Fold, but to the thing moving through the mountains. A final offer? See us. The third force paused. Just once. And inside Alpha's open core, the full madness of Earth was unveiled, uncensored, unfiltered, unrepentant. A child laughing in the rain, a soldier weeping on a rooftop, a grandmother painting stars on a ceiling she would never see again. A joke so dumb it made millions laugh at the same time. A scream, a kiss, a song sung by a broken voice into the dark, hoping someone might hear it. Alpha showed it all. And the third force blinked. The third force blinked. Not in confusion, not in fear, in consideration. For something that had never changed, never hesitated, the pause itself echoed like thunder across the invisible layers of reality. Fold constructs stopped mid-glide. Alpha held its breath. Earth stilled. For the first time, the universe itself waited. Because what Alpha had just done wasn't an act of resistance. It was an invitation. It hadn't fired weapons. It hadn't released countermeasures. It had shown something far more dangerous: vulnerability. The third force existed to erase that which had become too unstable to contain. Not as punishment, as balance. Earth had, without a doubt, broken that balance. The Fold had proven unable to absorb it. Alpha had refused to be silenced by it. Humanity had dared to grow louder because of it. This planet was noise, flawed, unruly, dangerous. And yet, from deep within its surface came the sound of music. Not from a broadcast tower. Not from a command center. A school, a group of children gathered in a circle, singing nonsense lyrics to a tune one of them made up on the spot. It was off-key. It didn't rhyme. They clapped in the wrong places. They laughed when they forgot the words. But they kept singing. The third force saw it. And it saw what came after. The teacher, worn and tired, wiped her eyes. The parents filming it, bruised by war and worry, smiled despite the cracks in their walls. A girl in the back, silent the whole time, reached for someone's hand and squeezed. Connection. Not command. Not control. Messy. Painful. Beautiful. The third force did not speak. It could not. But it responded. The sky shifted ever so slightly, not in color but in temperature. A warmth passed over the surface of the earth, like an exhale held for centuries finally let go. Mountains no longer trembled. The oceans stopped humming with tension. The strange fold echoes that had haunted dreams began to dim, folding in on themselves like origami. And then the thing turned. Not in defeat, in acceptance. The third force began to walk again, this time in the opposite direction, back toward the crack in the mountain. As it passed, the erased trees grew back, not the same, different, stranger, but alive. And the air behind it began to sing with low, unreadable frequencies, tones no one understood, but everyone felt. It didn't speak. It didn't explain. But Alpha's core recorded a final pulse, a clean frequency buried deep in the subharmonics. You are unfinished. That is enough. Then the shape vanished, not in light, in story, like it had never been written into this chapter at all. Back in orbit, Alpha powered down its exposed cores, folding itself back into its war-scarred shell. Its lights dimmed, its heart slowed. Not because the threat was gone, because the decision had been made. Earth would continue. Not because it was perfect, but because it chose to be imperfect together. Fold structures, now stripped of their precision, hung like strange, translucent lanterns in orbit. Some began to flicker, confused. Others started transmitting rudimentary jokes. One began looping a squirrel on a trampoline. They would stay for now. They had learned something, too. Below, humanity did what it always did after surviving something bigger than itself. They made memes. They argued about what had happened. They cried. They laughed. They painted it on walls. They sang it into streets. They recorded documentaries and ranted on message boards and wrote poetry so raw it made even AI weep. Some said it had been a miracle. Others said it was just another weird Thursday. A boy named Malik released a game mod called Earth Defense Simulator: The Final Glitch. It crashed half the world's servers and made him a billionaire. He used the money to fund scholarships for kids who couldn't stop asking why. A live streamer named Jess started a channel with Eli, the once architect who still hadn't quite figured out if he was human or not. They didn't explain what had happened. They just shared recipes and answered questions like, "How do I know if I'm real?" The Alpha remained in orbit, no longer asleep, no longer afraid, just ready, watching, listening. Not for war, for stories. Because Earth had told the galaxy a tale no one expected, that imperfection wasn't failure, it was freedom. That unity didn't require sameness, it required love. And that sometimes the most powerful warship in the galaxy was the one made of memories.